King Solomon stands as one of the most remarkable rulers in history, a monarch whose reign was marked by prosperity, wisdom, and an unimaginable accumulation of wealth. The Bible highlights his legacy not only because he succeeded his father, King David, as Israel's ruler, but also due to his extraordinary intellect and impressive achievements. Among these, the construction of the first temple in Jerusalem remains his most renowned accomplishment. To grasp the significance of Solomon, it's essential to consider how prominently he is mentioned in religious texts. Though his name does not appear in biblical accounts until the final moments of David's life, once introduced, it is referenced approximately 300 times in the Old Testament and at least a dozen times in the New Testament. Beyond biblical sources, Solomon's name emerges in other historical and religious writings, sometimes wrapped in legendary accounts that depict him as a master of mystical arts, including tales of his supposed dominion over supernatural beings. However, in this video, we will uncover the true narrative of Solomon as documented in the Bible. Born to King David and Bathsheba, formerly the wife of Uriah, Solomon entered the world during David's reign in Jerusalem. The Bible also refers to him by the name Jedediah, meaning beloved of the Lord. His ascension to the throne was anything but straightforward, occurring amidst intense power struggles within David's court. Given that David had multiple wives and a large family, internal conflicts and rivalries were common, with various factions vying for influence. One of the most turbulent episodes surrounding Solomon's rise involved his half-brother Absalom, who had previously attempted to seize the throne from their father. Though Absalom's coup ultimately failed, another of David's sons, Adonijah, sought to claim kingship for himself. Backed by influential figures such as Joab, David's former military commander, and Abiathar, a high priest, Adonijah staged a grand coronation ceremony to solidify his rule. However, the prophet Nathan, Bathsheba, and other loyal advisors intervened, reminding David of his promise that Solomon would be his successor. In response, David issued a royal decree ensuring Solomon's anointing as king, with the high priest Zadok overseeing the ceremonial process. At the time of his coronation, Solomon was likely no older than 18. Solomon's reign endured for 4 decades, spanning from approximately 971 to 931 BCE, though some scholars propose a timeline of 960 to 920 BCE. Regardless of the exact chronology, his rule was characterized by decisive actions to consolidate power. Shortly after his father's passing, Solomon acted swiftly to eliminate potential threats, ordering the execution of Adonijah and Joab while exiling Abiathar. Once internal stability was secured, Solomon focused on governance and reform. He inherited a vast kingdom, stretching over 128,000 square kilometers, and revolutionized its administrative structure. To streamline governance, he divided Israel into 12 districts, each overseen by appointed officials responsible for supplying the royal court. These officials ensured that the kingdom's vast resources sustained the government efficiently. According to biblical records in 1 Kings 4, the daily provisions for Solomon's court included approximately 9,000 kilograms of flour, 30 oxen, and countless sheep, deer, and birds. While some dismiss these figures as exaggerated, historians argue that they reflect the sustenance required for a royal household comprising thousands of people, including palace officials, servants, and military personnel. Militarily, Solomon introduced significant advancements, including the establishment of chariot divisions and cavalry units. He reinforced Israel's borders with fortified cities and built roads to facilitate trade. His greatest economic strength, however, lay in commerce. By strategically controlling key trade routes and entering lucrative agreements, Solomon transformed Israel into a central hub for international trade. One of his earliest commercial agreements was with Hiram, the king of Tyre, exchanging vast quantities of wheat and olive oil for high-quality timber. Additionally, he engaged in trade with Egypt, importing horses and chariots, while exporting them to neighboring empires such as the Hittites and Arameans, profiting significantly from these transactions. Yet, his most ambitious commercial enterprise involved maritime trade. Solomon's fleet, navigating the Red Sea and Arabian waters, reached distant lands such as Ophir, famed for its gold. These voyages, which could last up to 3 years, yielded immense profits, cementing Solomon's status as one of history's wealthiest figures. Between trade revenues, toll collections, and taxation, his wealth accumulation was unparalleled, leading to descriptions of silver becoming as abundant as stones in Jerusalem. Among his architectural achievements, none was more significant than the First Temple of Jerusalem, a project originally envisioned by David. To complete this monumental task, Solomon employed forced labor, primarily drawing from subjugated Canaanite populations. However, as demand for labor increased, Israelites were also conscripted, creating tensions that later fueled unrest. The temple, constructed on Mount Moriah, the site where Abraham is believed to have prepared to sacrifice Isaac, was an engineering marvel of its time, adorned with gold and precious wood. It took 7 years to complete, and upon its dedication, Solomon orchestrated an elaborate ceremony featuring extensive sacrifices. Beyond the temple, Solomon commissioned several other impressive structures, including the House of the Forest of Lebanon, his grand palace, and a fortress to defend Jerusalem. His private residence was reportedly vast enough to accommodate his 700 wives and 300 concubines, a staggering number that surpassed the limits set for Israelite kings. His marriages, largely political in nature, forged alliances with various nations, though they also introduced foreign religious practices into Israel. Over time, Solomon's foreign wives influenced his faith, leading him to permit idol worship, an act that ultimately distanced him from God. Despite his profound wisdom, which earned him admiration from figures such as the Queen of Sheba, Solomon's later years were marked by spiritual decline. The Bible recounts how the Lord grew displeased with Solomon's choices, particularly his tolerance of idolatry. Although divine punishment was delayed during his lifetime out of respect for David, adversaries such as Hadad the Edomite and Jeroboam arose, foreshadowing Israel's impending division. Jeroboam, an ambitious leader, led a rebellion that ultimately resulted in the fragmentation of Solomon's kingdom following his death. His son, Rehoboam, inherited a weakened Israel, and the once unified nation splintered into 2 separate entities, the northern kingdom of Israel and the southern kingdom of Judah. Solomon's demise remains shrouded in mystery, with biblical accounts providing no details about his final moments. However, his legacy, though tarnished by his later failures, endures through his contributions to Israel's cultural, economic, and religious history. Solomon's extensive writings, including Proverbs, Ecclesiastes, and Song of Songs, continue to influence theological and philosophical thought. Yet outside biblical records, numerous myths and legends have emerged, painting him as a sorcerer or a figure with supernatural abilities. These stories, often rooted in medieval mysticism, lack historical credibility. Contrary to sensational claims, no historical evidence supports the notion that Solomon wielded magical powers or commanded demons. From an archaeological perspective, while debates persist regarding the scale of his kingdom, discoveries continue to shed light on Israel's monarchical period. Unfortunately, excavations around the temple's site remain politically and religiously sensitive, limiting research opportunities. What remains undeniable is that Solomon's grandeur foreshadowed a far greater kingdom, the eternal reign of the Messiah, as hinted in Psalm 72. So, what do you think? Did he realize his mistakes too late? Share your opinion in the comments. If this video made you reflect, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. That way you help us keep bringing impactful stories like this one. And now there's a video on the screen that I'm sure you'll enjoy. See you there.